Good day, everyone, especially to our Professor, Doc Sasa. This is JennyViaña, your discussant for today. And the topic that was assigned to me is about motivation, empowerment, process, and team. First, let us define what is motivation. It is the process that initiates, guides, and maintains goal-oriented behaviors. It is what causes you to act, whether it is getting a glass of water to reduce thirst or reading a book to gain knowledge. Another definition of motivation is it involves the biological, emotional, social, and cognitive forces that activate behavior. In everyday usage, the term motivation is frequently used to describe why a person does something. It is the driving force behind human actions. So motivation doesn't just refer to the factors that activate behaviors. It is also involves the factors that direct and maintain these goal-directed actions. And as a result, we often have to infer the reasons why people do the things that they have or they do based on observable behaviors. And what exactly lies behind the motivations for why we act. Psychologists have proposed different theories of motivation, including drive theory, instinct theory, and humanistic theory, such as the Maslow hierarchy of needs. The reality is that there are many different forces that guide and direct our motivations. There are different types of motivation. So the different types of motivation are frequently described as being either extrinsic or intrinsic. What is extrinsic motivations? These are those that arise from outside of the individual and often involve rewards such as trophies, money, social recognition, or praise. While the intrinsic motivations are those that arise from within the individual, such as doing a complicated crossword puzzle purely for the personal gratification of solving a problem. But what are the uses of motivation? So there are many different uses of motivations. It serves as guiding force for all the human behavior. But understanding how it works and the factors that may impact it can be important in a number of ways. So let us understand the motivation. First, help improve the efficiency of people as they work toward goals. Next, help people take action. Third, encourage people to engage in health-oriented behaviors. Fourth, help people avoid unhealthy or maladaptable behaviors such as risk-taking and addiction. Next, help people feel more in control of their lives. And last, improve overall well-being and happiness. There are different impacts of motivation. Anyone who has ever had a goal probably immediately realized that simply having the desire to accomplish something is not enough. So achieving such a goal requires the ability to persist through obstacles and endurance to keep going in spite of difficulties. There are three major components of motivation: activation, persistence, and intensity. What is activation? It involves the decision to initiate a behavior, such as enrolling in a psychology class. Next is persistence. It is the continued effort toward the goal, even though obstacles may exist. Example of persistence would be taking more psychology courses in order to earn a degree, although it requires a significant investment of time, energy, and resources. So that is persistent. And intensity can be seen in the concentration and vigor that goes into pursuing a goal. Example of intensity is there is one student might coast by without much effort, while another student will study regularly, participate in discussions, and take advantage of research opportunities outside of class. So the first student lacks intensity, while the second pursue their educational goals with greater intensity. So these are the tips for finding motivation. All people experience fluctuations in their motivation and willpower rather. Sometimes you might feel fired up and highly driven up to reach your goals, while at other times you might feel listless or unsure of what you want or how to achieve it. Even if you are living or you're feeling low on motivation, there are different steps on how you can take will that will keep you moving forward. And these are the things that you can do. Include first, adjust your goal to focus on things that really matter to you. Next, if you're tackling something that is just too big or too overwhelming, break it up into smaller steps and try setting your sights on achieving that first step toward progress. And third, improve your confidence. Fourth, remind yourself about what you achieved in the past and whether your strengths are or lie. And last, if there are things that you feel insecure about, try working on making improvements in those areas so that you feel more skilled and capable. And now let us go to empowerment. What do we mean by empowerment? So empowerment means people having power and control over their own lives. So people get the support they need that is right for them. Empowerment means that people are equal citizens. They are respected and confident in their communities. They can't empower someone else or make someone empowered. It is about ways of working and supporting someone that means they can take control and responsibility for their own lives. So some people might need more support than other people, but that just doesn't mean that everyone can be empowered. Decisions made on behalf of people who lack capacity should be made in the person's best interest and should involve the person as much as possible and those who know them really well. When people are empowered, the power is with the person and not the professional or the services. How will we know if people are empowered? It will be clear that the person has the power if they will set their own goals and make their own decisions. People will make or will have a voice and be treated like equal citizens. This means that they will have the same opportunities as everyone else to live good lives in the community. People's experiences and feelings will be valued and they will be listened to and respected. And also people will be safe and will feel safe. People will know about their rights and can act on them. And of course, people will have the information and advice that they need so that they can make their own decisions. There will be good advocacy for people. Advocacy and empowerment go hand in hand because advocacy is about speaking up and getting your views heard. For people who need help to make decisions or someone to make a decision for them, advocacy is really important. So people will have the freedom and support that they need to do the things that are important to them. Now, now let us find out how do the work process or what are the work processes. So according to Baldrige Glossary, it explains that the term work processes refers to your most important internal value creation processes. They are the processes that involve the majority of the organization's workforce and produce customer, stakeholder, and stockholder value. So if you want to boil that down into a more straightforward definition, it means that your work processes is a standard way that important things get accomplished. Whether it's cranking out a specific report or launching an entirely new product, there is usually a systematized flow of information and a standard set of tasks that need to be completed by the team. So, why are these processes important? They keep your team on the same page while also ensuring that everybody has clear idea of what needs to be accomplished and where their piece fits into the whole puzzle. And however, processes aren't designed to be stagnant. They should change as your team, objectives, and resources change. And adjusting your work processes also begins with identifying your current ones. So let us identify your current work process. Some people believe that identifying the way things currently get done is an easy task. However, you might be surprised by how much is unsaid and undocumented, particularly when you have long-standing team members who just know to get certain things taken care of, whether they've been instructed or not. So the first one is to enlist your team. The main goal is to get an in-depth view of how tasks and information flow through your team, not just a broad, high-level overview from where you sit. This means that you need to work closely with your team to truly understand how they work. After all, they are the ones that are in the trenches and actually knee-deep in your processes day in and day out. The next one is build a flow chart. So building a flowchart, or also known as the business process mapping, has become increasingly popular in the business world. Its purpose is to gain a detailed understanding of the process, people, inputs, controls, and outputs, and then potentially to simplify it all, make it more efficient and or improve the process results. It has been said by Lucid Chart eloquently. Third one is pinpoint concerns. The goal of identifying your process was not just to spot how things flow, but also how they can be improved. This means that apart from identifying the process, you also need to identify where things might fall apart. By using these two steps above, it will become much easier to identify things that are being missed or if there are areas that aren't going according to plan. So documenting and knowing where they exist will help you to sidestep trouble spots rather, and to address employee concerns that are critical in implementing the new process. So let us build a better process. How are we going to do that? Now that we have a grasp of what we are currently working process looks like and any areas that could use improvement, it's time to get started on the next step, building a workflow that will function better for your team and address those operational concerns that are slowing things down. First, ask questions. Like you did when identifying current processes, your first step is designing a new process should be to converse with your team members. Have a frank discussion with them. Why is the roadblock occurring? What what would make their jobs easier? And having that understanding of what their concerns are, whether they are occurring on and how they can be addressed, will help you craft and implement a new process that truly resolves those issues rather than slapping a band-aid on them. The next one is create a new flowchart. When it comes to designing a new process, building out another visual representation will be helpful in ensuring that you address all the concerns that were highlighted during your research. However, don't trick yourself into thinking that this process needs to be anything overly complex or formal. As long as you get the new process mapped out on paper in a way that you and your team can understand, you are on the right track. And when thinking of how you'll create the new workflow, design the process as if you were starting a new entity with great resources that will help you shake any limiting beliefs that you have when mapping your flowchart. You'll craft a process that will actually improve that your team are functioning. And then the third one is move backwards. Building an entirely new process can feel overwhelming. So the smartest way to approach is to actually work backwards. So start your goal or output of the process and then ask, in order to achieve this result, what must we do? So do the same for each subsequent answer until the process is defined. Then the team will be designing the process from outputs back to inputs. And then let's say that you want to uncover the process for how your content team creates a blog post. So rather than starting way back at the beginning, start with the end result. Then a post is published. So continue moving backwards through each little piece of the puzzle until you've reached the very beginning. Once the draft of the new process is done, suggest reviewing and improving it by looking by different situations. When something that could or should be happening isn't, when something that shouldn't be happening is, and when you don't know what's happening. And then the fourth one to build a better process is reduce the volume. Even with the above steps, you may still end up with somewhat bloated and overly complicated process. Most processes can be done in no more than 6 steps, even though we know that there are many moving parts and sub-steps that occur. It has been said by Marcos. That is why it is important to try to reduce the volume of your process to make it as streamlined as possible. It will always better to put your hours of operation on your website than to develop a very efficient process for providing your hours of operation on the phone. So that was just some tips. So you have to look for areas where you're completing things simply because you've always done them. Then those might be the tasks that you could be cut out completely. So easing the transition and how to implement new process. Even though this new process is designed to help your team function better while addressing the problems they were consistently facing, there will be resistance to change. You will experience some reluctance or hesitation when introducing a new and improved process. For this reason, it's important that you communicate openly with your team members and involve them in the process as instructed. So before you implement this new way of doing things, schedule a meeting with with the team members who will be impacted by this new process. Take the time to explain why this change was necessary. making sure that you touch on those challenges and pain points you identified, and then ask for any further questions or suggestions about the new process. The more people understand why the change was made and how it helps them, the more accommodating and engaged they'll be. So your work processes or how your team gets things accomplished, but they shouldn't just be set and forgotten because change is the only real constant in your team. Members leave, new ones join. New technologies and tools are introduced while others are retired. Goals and objectives shift all the time. Failing to adjust and improve your processes to match those changes will only result in frustration, disorganization, and debate. So instead of hoping that your team members adapt and processes somehow adjust when changes are introduced, you need to be proactive in managing change by identifying current processes and then crafting new ones that will keep your team's tasks streamlined and predictable. So before I end up my discussion, I just want to leave these quotes to you that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. Thank you so much for listening and have a nice day.